Hi everyone. So I'm here going live today because today it's a particular energetic dynamic where we have this conjunction of the sun to Uranus. So the sun, the kind of heroic vitality that right now is in Taurus season. So our sun is in Taurus, and then we also have a conjunction with the sun to Uranus, which is an outer planet. It packs this generational kind of punch and is radically innovative and disruptive also, and it commands both liberations in our lives but also reversals at the same time. So it's kind of this weird, push-pull. And so you may be feeling today either really charged and energized and like there's a lot of momentum and pulse and like boom, 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 going forward. Or you might also be feeling this kind of, on the other extreme, this sense of burnout or feeling frozen or this sense of like, okay, I want to take it all back sort of thing. I just want to reverse it all. I want to reabsorb all that creative energy that I put out, and I just want to take it all back. I can't do it. Gotta curl up in a fetal position kind of thing. So because Uranus, it will do both of those. It will both pump you up, but it will also kind of like, it's like in a cartoon, getting zapped by the getting the science experiment hair. I don't have hair, so I can't replicate it, but it's like you get zapped and burned out, or you get charged and amped up and ready to go. So both of these things happen with the sun conjunction to Uranus, especially in Taurus season. So I want to come on today to give some tips on how to work with the Uranus energy. With Uranus energy, there will be a lot of this kind of, you'll feel carried forward to something or propelled to do something in action, swift and momentous. It feels like there's this, like you're midwifing this change that's trying to happen in your life or maybe in other people's lives too. So the question is how to work with that demand for change and how to discern what is the demand for change that's authentically yours, and what is a demand for change that feels like it's being pushed upon you or being forced to happen or by way of suggestion from others. Important to make those distinctions so that you have choice and self-empowerment in what you're doing. So what is Uranus anyway? Why are we talking about this? So when we look at the planetary transits, when we look at astrology, we're talking about archetypes, right? So archetypes are, it's a big word, so I want to define it for everyone, at least just a provisional definition. There are lots of different definitions that are correct in their own way and that all come down to unpacking the larger perspective of archetype. But archetype is basically the story underneath the story underneath things. What is the underlying story? Mother is an archetype, father is an archetype, the lover is an archetype, dreamer. That there are these kind of universal characters that work through an underlying story. Some archetypes are more connected to time and the daily world of the human personality in the world, and some archetypes are more we could say timeless than others. In another way, all of the archetypes are timeless because we're dealing with cosmic principles. But when we're talking about things like Uranus, these are intelligences that carry many different figures, characters, voices, impulses within them. And some of them are really attuned to the needs of the human being, and others are not so much. So with Uranus, there's a sense that it is, in a sense, a timeless archetype. And in another way, there's also an aspect of Uranus that is aware of time-bound human needs, right? So the aspect of Uranus that is timeless is seen in the sky god Uranus, who in Greek mythology, he really he was a primordial. He was a primordial deity. He did not want his creative conceptions to change, so he forced them all back into the womb of Gaia. He wasn't interested in growth and imperfections. He wanted his creative conceptions to stay the way that they perfectly were in his conception of them. So in that sense, that aspect of Uranus is a timeless archetype. It's not interested in the messy growth and imperfection of existence. And then the time-bound aspect of Uranus is Prometheus. Prometheus stole fire for the humans in this. Prometheus had this acute perception of their survival needs. So this paradoxical quality of Uranus makes it kind of unpredictable. It makes it really the unpredictable planet that it is. And so Uranus can either provide our humanity with unforeseen tools to sustain itself, as happened with Prometheus and stealing fire and giving it to the humans, or Uranus can sort of impatiently stop all possibilities of growing and unfolding on the terms of our individual imperfections, right? Uranus can be this force that cannot tolerate the individual imperfections that we have. So what's needed? What's needed is to acknowledge that this force of stopping the process of growth and decay, that aspect of Uranus that stops it, and sort of reabsorbing ourselves into the realm only of idea and possibility, right, that's universal to an extent. But it inconveniences us. It makes us suffer. And sometimes that's what the soul wants. Sometimes the soul wants to experience that timeless aspect of Uranus. Sometimes the soul wants the archetype of Uranus to wreak that havoc upon its life, because that's part of our nature, that we are dancers in the ecosystem of natural and divine beings. And sometimes the soul wants that kind of reckless, just impatient charge of reabsorption back into the womb of ideas. So it's important to keep that in perspective. But second, while it's important to be aware of that, it's also important to talk with images that want to sabotage instances of growth in your life. The instincts to kind of take it all back. I take it all back. I take all this back. Right? And to let those impulses know. Let them know I'm a human with legitimate human needs to keep growing on my own terms. So while it's important to have the awareness that sometimes the soul wants to be disturbed, sometimes the soul wants to be able to say, I take all this back, and I'm just going to be burned out and fried and frozen, right? It's important to talk with those impulses, recognize the Uranian archetype for what it is, and it's never just one. There's always a multiplicity, because as one of the Romantic poets said, a god never appears alone. So I'm not saying this is only Uranus working, right? But it's important to talk with those images, those impulses in any case, and say, I'm a human with legitimate needs to grow within my messy imperfections, and change is not going to be forced, and nor is it going to be stalled and taken back and reabsorbed. So talking with timeless archetypes firmly is really important, because that aspect of Uranus doesn't have any knowledge of the 3D human needs of the daily personality. So, and then third, the phrase, that phrase, grow on my own terms, is really important, because on my own terms, that's something that Uranus understands at the level of Prometheus, because it values autonomy. And this triggers the Promethean side, which steals the fire that's needed to sustain you. And you don't know what that fire is going to look like. That fire might look like a completely new, innovative tool or breakthrough in your life somehow. But it's important to hold those three things, right? Recognize the soul's compulsion to take it all back, reabsorb it all into the realm of ideas, or burn out, or get fried. Then talk with those impulses firmly and say, hey, I'm a human in the 3D world who has to meet certain needs, and please acknowledge that. And then also say, the needs are met on my own terms, which triggers that Promethean side that steals the fire that helps sustain you, right? So one point about this is that this conjunction of the Sun to Uranus gives our values speed and pulse. It revolutionizes our values. It upends them sometimes. And because why do I say values? Because we're in Taurus season, and Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is about value and values and sensuality. The sensual being able to grasp with the body values, right? So our values are given multiple channels, sometimes overwhelmingly a multiplicity of channels to express themselves. And we have the permission to kind of step in and out of rhythm, stepping between channels, right? Right? But it's sometimes that can be disorienting, can be very disorienting. So, and that disorientation can go back into that frozen state, or that burned out state of wanting to take it all back. So rather than over-identifying as frozen or as burnt out or as asleep, see if it's possible to instead consider this Sun-Uranus conjunction as an invitation to reflect upon how you can autonomously channel that pulse without outmoded assumptions about the way things need to sequentially happen. It's kind of a right-brained form of insight that demands to break through with its light the kind of left brain assumptions about it needs to happen this way, and that need this, and then this, and then this needs to happen. It's like the Uranus Sun conjunction is an opportunity to shine this light through that, melting the ice of the left brain, and saying, okay, I'm going to channel these impulses autonomously in a way that I can breathe into and feel on my own terms, and in a way that's an opportunity to smash those oppressive old inner programs telling me it must be this, and then this, and then this. Right. So that's very important. So autonomy is key. Autonomy is the big word. I must be allowed to grow on my own terms. I must acknowledge the impulse to reabsorb everything back and take it all back, but also talk to that impulse firmly and say, I have real legitimate human needs in the world, and they must be met on my own terms. And then that Promethean fire comes to you and says, all right, well, here are some tools to sustain yourself. It's not a linear process, but these are ways of working with Uranus. And now, another important thing is don't force changes to happen. Big words with Uranus are change, progress, reversal, right? We've been talking about these things. And don't force changes, progress, or reversals to happen, especially when they're catalyzed by the suggestions of other people. Sometimes other people suggest that we make changes in our lives, And when we think like, oh, I have to force a change to happen. Oh, my nervous system is all out of whack and now I'm fried, right? No, don't force it to happen. Try instead working with Uranus is waiting like a strange attractor, like a human strange attractor, in a receptive state for the attraction of enough change agents to make a path of least resistance form in front of you. And you know this by feeling a lack of resistance in your body and the freedom to go with the changes. So in other words, the change feels natural, it feels good, it feels like, yeah, this is the path of least resistance. But often for that to happen, enough change agents need to appear, enough signs and synchronicities need to appear for that feeling in the body to be able to go along with it, right? So if it feels forced, it's talk with that timeless side of Uranus and say, hey, this feels too forced. I'm a human with three-dimensional personality needs. Listen up, all right? But if there are enough change agents to the point where it's like, okay, this is aligned, this is aligned, this is aligned, I can feel it more easily, naturally in my body, okay, I'm going with it. That's a different thing, right? So, and then the other part is actively continuing in the flow of what was given to you that you can feel as natural progress and innovation happening in your life. So it's like Prometheus has given you fire before in your life that has helped sustain you, that has helped shelter you, that has helped bring your creative potential to fruition. So when you feel that in your body, when you feel continuing in the flow of what's been given to you, of the path that has already formed before you, so that you can feel in your body what sustains you. So part of it is not forcing change to happen, but appreciating the synchronicities and signs like a human strange attractor, welcoming change agents that melt certain resistances away, but only to the extent that they feel right over time. It's not forced. And then the other is continuing with what makes you feel free and autonomous already, and letting it evolve in its natural, organic way. So I hope that was helpful. These are ways that I, as someone who's going through a conjunction of transiting Uranus to my sun, these are certain messages that I have received over the last, not in a sense of linear time, but just in ways myself of working more creatively and consciously with the Uranus energy, in both the timeless and the timely aspect of it. So it's important to be able to learn to work with both of those. I'm happy to have a conversation or to offer a consultation to anyone who's curious about the astrological dynamics of how this is working in your life, and even just intuitively feeling how Uranus energy seems to be working through you right now. So I hope that helped. I'll be on again soon revisiting this subject. So see you all soon.